Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Subcommittee of Revitalize Business, part of Executive Committee of the County Board. We welcome everyone today. Call the meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Swanson? Ms. Parker?
Present.
Ms. Polk?
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra?
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Are there any public comments? Do we have any public comments? Okay. Do we have any public input? Anyone like to speak? Okay.
Yes, we do. I'm sorry, sir. You have to be on the microphone over there. Yeah, apologize. You do. If you do want to make comment, it has to be on the microphone, though. Sorry.
Yes. Okay, if we have no public input, we're going to move on to the approval of minutes, which we have none since this is our first meeting. Next meeting we'll have minutes. So I am going to turn this over to Chairman Wheeler, where we are going to discuss the mission and the process of Revitalize Business. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's attendance today. I'll start off with, I wanted to, and I've been doing this in every committee, thanking Kelly Bilak, Jasmine Humble, and Anita Speckman, Steve McCarty for helping put together what you see as our KCR3 launch report, basically the document that allows us to kick this thing off. A lot of great work in a short amount of time. What have you been here, 2 weeks, Jasmine? 4? Really?
Oh my God.
But you were, that's right. Yeah, it was, no, wait a minute. It just seems like not that long, really. Seems like just a minute. Anyway, a lot of great work went on to put this together. Can't thank the team enough for that. You'll notice the level of quality when you start reading it. It's meant to be, and it's going to be on our website if the public is watching this, as a kind of like where we at in 2020 and 2021 in terms of pandemic, the impacts locally. It's not exhaustive. There's more detail you can find on the interwebs out there, but in terms of what we saw from credible sources that are able to provide data, this is kind of where we're at as a community. In some ways things were different here, and in some ways they were just the same, in some ways worse. So it's just, it matters on the frame of reference on what you're going to have to consider when you're talking about, well, how do I come up with policies first that are going to help revitalize the business community. Look for those connections to other issues that are going on in the area, whether it's, oh, I don't know, workforce development, incarceration, you know, getting people into the entry-level jobs. The businesses can't find people to work right now, which is not unique to this area, but it's a real problem. And whenever that changes, then how are we going to deal with that? What skills are we short? But from a business side, we need the business people to talk to us about this. So that's why this committee structure is set up in the way that it is because we need input from those people who are in the business community. Some of us obviously have been in business and relatively, you know, whether it's ownership or high level C-suite or managing or working. I mean, we've seen different parts of this industrial, you know, maintenance and, you know, construction projects. Everybody's got a different expertise, and really I'm looking around the room and there's people in here that have touched a lot of different areas of business, manufacturing, office settings, construction, whatever. I mean, it's pretty diverse just in this room, and that's kind of why you're here in a way, for that input. But then also those out in the community, we need to hear from them, whether it's our chambers of commerce, the people that are leading those chambers, what are they seeing, what has fallen through the cracks. So the work we do here on this revitalized business community is really essential. It's essential work. When I came up with the names Respond and Revitalize and Reinvest, it was based on directly what the law says that we should be doing. It must be doing with this money, and it also what other academic sources were suggesting how we approach this in terms of equitable approaches that work with other municipalities, other governmental units to make this tackle bigger problems and have a broader impact for a longer period. Pennies from heaven don't always land, and they probably won't land for quite a while. So this was, you know, this is just the start of the marathon, and there may be some things we sprint to quickly, and there's other things that will be more involved. But this today was more so we can, at this committee level, start to figure out what are those policy things that allows us to go to the next step. I've said this, I think 6 times today, have done the same spiel, so I sometimes forget who I've talked to and who I haven't, from the time of the morning until to now. But you know, we really needed to. It was backwards how this came about. You know, usually you have an idea of a program or something that would impact the community, and then you chase the money. In this case, we got the money, and now we're chasing the programs. And so that's a dangerous way to approach it unless you have a lot of subject matter input. You're very purposeful. You have really budgeting in mind because there's all of these different programs and initiatives to serve. Not everybody's going to get everything. And some people won't get anything. Some people will get a piece of it. That's what the board decides. But the process is essential, that we take our time for the things that we can take our time on. And really be purposeful on what's the biggest impact that we can have with this, rather than just throw money at something with no really accountability or documentation or measurables that we want to see. You know, the businesses, if they're saying that we can't find people to work and we don't dedicate money to workforce, then we would want to see that those jobs are retained. And that if they say that, you know, we have to pay people $17 an hour when we used to have to pay them 14, well, that's great for the worker, but are you going to cut their pay once you get all the people in the business? That's the kind of stuff that we want to make sure that if we're going to be doing things and granting money, our grantees, we're the grantor, are actually doing things the way that we want to see them do it. So that's just kind of like almost like a zoning case or a special use case. We can't have conditions on it, and that's called us having the money and people wanting the money. And so this is what you have to do to get it. And this is the type of metrics that we want on the back end of it. So I mentioned that under the business side of it, we have respond. How are we going to respond to the pandemic? How are we going to revitalize certain damaged parts of our community? And then reinvest. So what existed before COVID, what was exacerbated by COVID, and then really blue sky, what is the future? And I say that a lot because so much of this is blue sky. This is so rare to have the opportunity to connect the dots between things that were so close to working in the past, but there wasn't that extra push over the hump, you know, just to get us moving in that direction. If we can do that and create something sustainable, which means that after our 3 years of money's up, there's still that 20-year impact, I'm really strongly advocating for that on the board. Rather than, there's going to be some things we just need to push money towards because there's an immediate need to do so. A good example would be we had an example earlier today of a gentleman from Hopkins Park came in and said they had their effluent pumps went out, which are the lift station pumps, I believe, in the sewer system. So we have a sewage problem. Well, that's an immediate thing that we're not going to sit around for 3 weeks and debate policy on. That's an immediate need because there's health, safety, and really lack of funds. So we can decide on that committee, whichever one that ends up being, might be, well, it probably is going to be either reinvestment or we'll figure that out where it's got to go at some point. But maybe it's an 80-20. We pay 80%. And then Hopkins Park, we say we need, or the township or somebody come up with the other 20 if they have the money. So maybe
respond with public safety. That's a public safety issue.
Well, it could be, yeah, but it involves another municipality's infrastructure that doesn't have the money. So wherever we put it, ultimately the finance committee will bless it. So we just have to have a process to go through it. The other thing is that, you know, we'll probably have to do things like require quotes and 3 bids and those types of things, because obviously, you know, you don't want to just throw money at something and here's 10 grand and then it was 3,500. I'm not saying that's the case what's going to happen here, but we need to have the same processes and accountability that's put upon us when we are granted money. So that's going to be key to this whole thing, is to realize you're in a different position as board members. You're a grantor and there are grantees out there, whether they're internally that's more of like a use of the money that we still actually kind of control budgetarily, if you will, at the county level, because we are the budget oversight committee for all departments. But once you get into the community, you kind of lose that control. So we'll have to talk about those processes and the documentation that's necessary for us that we have to provide to get grants. Our grantees will have to provide that in most cases to us. So I just want to get that clear up front, because and I'm saying it in every meeting, because it can't be just willy-nilly throw money around.
No.
The public has a different expectation, and frankly, so does the Department of Treasury. And if there is the time that something has to be paid back, ultimately the county's on the hook for it. And so we're going to make sure that everything we're doing has been validated as much as it can be in this very vague set of FAQs that they've given us. I wish I could be more specific than they have been, but it keeps evolving all the time on these FAQs. So that in and of itself, this whole binder is full of materials, those Brookings Institute articles, which are really good. That I found another one, I included that. It really blesses the direction that we were already gonna go, and helped us refine it even more based on the connections we've made within the community. We have an obligation to reach out to other municipalities, governmental bodies, to see how we can make this go further. So, but that being said, the mission statement in there is kind of important on page 3. The Kankakee County Respond, Revitalize, and Reinvest funds will be allocated for qualified businesses, not-for-profit entities, projects, or direct individuals based on the ARPA rules, location, need, impact, and equity. Considering municipalities receive their own allocations, the county will focus on rural areas of the county, county infrastructure, and areas within the county lacking the resources and or infrastructure to mitigate the current and potential future pathogen emergency-related issues. So that being said, it tries to leave a lot of room for interpretation, but it definitely puts up some guide rails there of what we are looking to do and what we're looking to focus on, and potentially look to partner on with others that are willing to dedicate towards that particular issue.
Absolutely.
So that being said, I'm going to get into the, you know, the I don't want to say base policies that I put out to every committee, things that I personally thought would be best for us to kind of put down as a base, a foundational aspect of this, a cornerstone, that we can add more policies to that are specific to this committee, to business. So if you were putting out a policy, let's just say for the courts, the policy could be, we need, the courts needs to come up with a program to address the delays in trials. There's a good thing. That's a good start. That's a policy. So so from that you develop things that need to happen in order to do that, and who's going to tell you? Well, the courts are, right?
Exactly.
They're going to have their own ideas on what we need to do, and I'm hearing about those, and some of those are already included in that committee's packets. So in this one, I don't really have a whole lot from the business community, and we need to get that from the business community. We hear about it. You know, I can't find people qualified, and that, you know, Mary can attest to that in workforce. So this committee should really be paying attention to what workforce is saying. Okay, because that will help inform, well, who do we need at the table to help us? Because if we have less businesses who are able to make it, you know, who's at risk the most right now? Well, the ones who didn't get PPP, right?
Right.
They weren't eligible, they applied and were rejected. If they didn't try, we got to have that conversation too. Because if you didn't try and there was money out there, or you didn't apply for the grants for that particular business you're in, why would the county just step up and give you money when you didn't even take the first step yourself? We'll help you take that step if we possibly can, and maybe identify, that's one of the roles that Jasmine is going to have once we get up and rolling, is we're going to spend a lot of time on, you know, grants.gov or whatever portal is out there to help provide that information to this committee. Or if somebody puts in a request for, you know, project X, well, here's a grant for that. You know, how did that application go? Well, we did, and not everybody knows how to do this. This is not easy. A grant writing exercise is not easy at all. And trying to find a grant writer is probably harder, as I found out right now. So we're going to have to really try to address this in the best way possible. And I got to be honest, I don't have an answer right now on that one. I'm looking. I've talked to a couple third-party non-for-profits that have connections to grant writing teams that also do evaluations of the data. Because if we're looking for certain outcomes in certain things, I don't know, reducing recidivism by workforce opportunity, maybe that's a policy that comes out of that committee. Well, we're going to see the needle move in the next 2 years on recidivism because people are not offending because they actually have jobs. So what's it take for them to get the job? Maybe transportation to get the foot in the door. We're not really sure, but at this point, we kind of think it. The experts know. So that's what I just want to let you know, that there's really no bad ideas or uninformed positions, because nobody here is an expert in this except the experts who are coming in to inform us.
But Chairman, I have a question. If a business wrote a grant and they needed someone for matching funds, would this particular rescue plan be part of a matching if they did receive the grant?
It cannot be used for match on federal grants.
But for like nonprofit grants?
Well, yeah, but if it's a state grant, if it's a federal grant,
No.
this is federal money that can be used for local match.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
would be
a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, many of them
know.
ask for that,
Yeah.
especially in nonprofits. Do you have a matcher?
Yeah, at this point, that's the case. Now, again, that's kind of hazy, undefined in the FAQs. Will they say, well, yeah, if you get another grant from, let's say, EDA, that could be used, if it's 100%, we'll just make your grant 100% instead of 80%, 80-20. I don't know. I don't know what's behind the EDA curtain yet, and because they haven't released all those opportunities. So I just know that initially it says you cannot use ARPA money as local match for federal grants.
Okay.
But state grants,
State grants?
I haven't heard.
Corporation grants?
I don't know if corporation grants, all that stuff. So again, all stones will be unturned, or would not be left unturned. We will definitely go after everything we possibly can, but we need the public to do that as well.
Exactly.
So beyond that, I mean, that's, I've read, I didn't go through the actual baseline principles yet, did I?
The
I'm sorry,
policy?
I've done this 5 times. Yeah, the policy
You
stuff.
have not done that yet.
Okay. All right. Any more questions about what we've talked about so far? Okay. So the first one is, as practicable, deploy 2 years of ARPA funds on initiatives that have a long-term 10 to 20-year impact. That just makes sense. And we could do that better if we had partners in those endeavors as well, other governmental units. And where applicable, utilize special or internal funds before ARPA funds. If the county offices collect a fee to do something, that money should be used before ARPA funds. You can't just squirrel away that money. That's a foundational principle of this whole thing. If somebody paid a fee or a fine on something, we shouldn't just say, well, we're not going to use it for what it was intended legally to go towards. We'll just use ARPA funds instead. I don't think the board should do that. But you have to make that decision, not me.
I don't think so.
Access grant funds instead of ARPA funds when possible. Again, that just makes sense. Identify and support communities that were ineligible to participate in CURES, PPP, and CARES programs. There are people that fell through the cracks, especially in business, people the way they file their taxes. By the way, rural fire departments didn't have any money either, so they're coming to us as well. I thought I just mentioned that. It was on time. Yeah.
Rural fire.
Rural, yeah, like fire protection districts. Yeah, like municipalities, if they had their own fire department, they were funded, but not the more township-oriented
Township.
ones. Yeah.
As a county, is that,
Fire.
is that actually where we should have?
Hold on just a second. We got to turn you on.
I'm
bud.
sorry.
Yeah.
You're on now.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, or
Andy,
Mr. Wheeler,
Andy.
Andy.
It's fine.
No disrespect. No disrespect.
You have no idea.
No problem.
But I mean, it is our main focus, since we are county, is our main focus to be on businesses in our rural areas where the county has more of an effect, or is this in conjunction with also the municipalities which already have their funds?
I didn't want to limit anything up on front. I thought that certain, I don't know,
realizations,
understand if there's some
certain realizations will happen as we go through.
Right.
You know, so like maybe we say, you know, out of the business committee, just an idea, you know, you can't have applications open for 3 years.
Right.
Okay, that'll just be a mess. And plus, we're not able to handle that.
Right.
Maybe we have a capped fund that we ask our municipal partners to partner with.
Right.
And then we all sit on like a little committee to decide, okay, these businesses were impacted, they fell through the cracks, or maybe those municipalities just want to do it for their own.
Right.
So I don't know what the answer is yet. We're going to have to see who steps up and who wants to partner.
Right.
You know, it's you know, every taxpayer in the county helps pay for the court system, public safety, you know, the state's attorney, elections, all of that stuff. But then also local sales tax by these businesses helps pay for those services within those communities. So there is a difference.
Right.
And they did get their own money, but where it benefits us all, we should look to partner.
Right. No,
That makes
I agree.
sense?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, like if it's economic development, it's EDA grants, you know, that maybe there's stuff only counties can apply for that municipalities can't. Or they need the county to apply in order for the municipality to be eligible. You know, I see that as likely, that that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
all right. So really, the last one was build a consensus for regional projects, solicit public involvement, deliver the same exceptional transparency exemplified by all other Kankakee County administration processes. So that's one of the reasons that we put in this booklet and put out there in all of our meetings on how we are segregating the money, the COVID money, which is two parts, by the way, COVID money and then lost revenue money. Then from the general fund, as to not create an unrealistic expectation of what the budgets are in the county, because it would be inflated for years and then it'll go back down. So we can't do that. And then we also can't pass deficit budgets. So if this is covering off, you know, things that are being spent, then it needs to be kept separate out of the traditional general fund budget. So the other side is that when you look at the processes and the transparencies, we have a you know, everything's online. The checkbook is online, just like with Workforce Board and everything else. You could see it all, who our vendors are, who their checks are going to, who we approve as the projects, a running total of how much has been allocated and where it's going to, what those grants were. You know, because there's going to be paperwork. You're going to have to fill all this stuff out and provide detailed information. We have an internal auditor, someone is that separate eyes that looks at every single invoice and everything that comes through here, an absolutely essential part of county government. You know, we have all of those things in place that makes us better. And that's why a lot of, you know, I want to say, governmental entities who need that help with financial management, they're coming to us to say, we want you to be the fiscal agent for us, to help us so we can get grants again. And so those are things that we're looking at that should make people feel good, that the county is actually viewed as that by the other governments and those internally and externally, that we have these internal controls in place that really minimizes the risk of again, fraud, misuse, and those types of things. And by the way, that's key in what we set up in the grant rules as well. You know, if I were to be a betting man, and I'm definitely not anymore, I would say in 5, 6, 7 years, you'll probably see a lot of court cases with, you know, Uncle Lou's not-for-profit LLC, you know, with the things that could happen out there. It's not going to happen here. We're going to have requirements that are going to make sure that that doesn't happen. Well, to the best of our ability.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
you never know sometimes. But beyond that, any other questions about the preamble and all the other stuff? So now the only thing that we need to do today, as far as every committee got the same baseline little rules, if you will, policy, just to make sure we're all on the same page. If there was a disconnection now, we should address it now. So as the other committees have voted this in, we had 2 that didn't have a quorum, but the others approved it. It's just a start. We're going to add to this, and it'll be maybe specific to what we do here in this committee or what you do. I'm not a member of the committee. I'm just like kind of helping guide it, and then you guys do your thing. And you know, maybe I can interject something about, you know, facts and data and figures, and maybe we go this way. It's really up to the board what we do here. This is not a one-person decision. but there had to be somebody who organized it. So,
Thank you.
so with that, any questions about the policy, or is there a motion to approve them? Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I'm
That's
stepping
okay.
in your area.
That's okay. Do we have a motion to approve the policy? Mr. Kirkstra, do we have a second? Mr. Alexander? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Nay? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the listing of requests. Do we have any?
There aren't any now. It's
Okay.
just to show you that that's on the agenda from now and on. And by the way, some of those requests might come from another committee. So it won't, you know,
That
it
would
could
be
be
great.
workforce sends something over here. We send something that us and workforce have worked together on. You know, we're gonna be doing little video wrap-ups, if you will. That's one of the things Jasmine's gonna do to let people know on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. We'll see how this works out with the cadence, but much like we did with Mr. Miller when he talked about the refuge, that went all over the place. And we need to do more of that because video is engaging. And you don't have to sit through 2 hours of, well, me, to get to something that is relevant. So, sorry, that didn't sound good, but just demean myself there a little bit. So anyway, some people said, yes, finally he admits it.
No,
So
never.
the main part is that we want to be accessible, we want to be visible, informative, and let what happens here be judged, not today, not yesterday, but all of that and tomorrow as well, because we're going to leave a trail of breadcrumbs about what we did. And so this initial launch report, you're going to see, like, at the end of this, what we did and where the numbers went and what worked and what didn't, because that's the only way you get better. You got to look in the mirror at some point, you know, and we will at the end of this, and maybe multiple times during the process. So
I know, I think it's important that all of us, all county board members, all the public, reach out to the business members and ask. I think maybe they're just waiting for an invitation to attend, to watch through stream, but we need to know. I mean, we can't assume what is wrong, but we need to know from the business people in order to plan ahead and have them, you know, submit to us their ideas and what their needs are. So please reach out to any of the businesses that you go to. Don't be afraid to ask how they feel, what's going on with their business, because we need to know. And it might start a dialogue there. Mr. Kirkstra?
Yes, I want, a point or a question that I had is, I understand and agree, we should be reaching out to our Chamber of Commerce and business people, and this is, and especially our small business people that are, well, basically what I call our mom and pop stores, the ones that turn the lights on in the morning and sweep the place out at the end of the day. And then do their books at the dinner table at home while they're trying to find out what their kids did all day. But am I, do all of these things that these things that we have that we're looking into, when we approach them, should we be approaching them under the guidelines of how did the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, affect you and affect your business? And is there any way that we can assist you to rejuvenate you from that and get you back up to where you were pre-pandemic? Is that?
I think it's relevant. It may be a broader
Yes.
conversation, just like what happened with you with COVID.
Right,
You know, it's well, I applied for PPP and I got rejected.
right,
And I didn't even know about the other round that came out.
right.
You know, and then,
right,
you
and
know,
then that way we can,
we could start to address, and they could come here and they could say, you know, I had the type of business that, because of the way I filed my taxes, I didn't qualify.
right,
And so, you know, I'll be looking into that. Like, what were those things? We should be looking into it.
right.
I don't want to be limiting. I
No,
you know, yeah, it's-
that's what I'm trying. I'm trying not to be limiting,
Yeah.
but but I'm trying to get a start,
Yeah.
get a foot in the door, you know.
I got to
and
be.
get 'em
I've been really
comfortable
thinking hard
because-
about SurveyMonkey.
Yeah,
To use, or one of the other services, to be able to get maybe like a chamber to forward it to all their members, or get it in, you know, the business committee would like to know from our workforce people what they see is missing, blah blah blah.
right.
And we could, there is a science to putting those together, believe me, because you ask a question the wrong way, you're not going to get a really statistically valid answer.
Right.
But when you start to look at it, the big problem we have is access to those email addresses. So I think much like if we're going to have a grantee that works with sub-grantees,
Right.
maybe we use the chambers, the Economic Alliance, the Workforce Board to ask some of those questions for us. We just provide the mainframe, we go out and acquire whatever survey program we're going to have, and then we've got data points.
Very good. Very
You
good.
know, we can start to trend that graph, you know, so that's, I think that makes a lot of sense. I was, at one point, me, Jasmine and I talked about that, building lists of all of our restaurants and hotels, all of our industrials, and then starting that communication model, whether, and even social service agencies and everybody else, it's like, you know, we hear of a grant opportunity, how do we get that out to everybody?
Exactly.
Because if it's competitive, well, then we're gonna compete.
And they have, the businesses, a lot of them that I have talked to don't understand the rescue plan quite yet. They think they're going to be receiving a check in the mail, but there's a process to get that and how we can help them build and to reinvest money from the federal government. So it's going to take a little bit of asking them, have you heard about the rescue funds? And is that the check we get in the mail? And no, it's something totally different. It's to
Right.
help you get started again after the pandemic. And I think maybe just a little bit of education would help.
Also the premise and the attitude that you're from the government, you're not here to help,
Yeah.
which needs to be changed. You know, this is an opportunity where you know, yeah, we're the county government, but we are here to help,
Right.
and we have an opportunity here to where we can help you. So it's
Exactly.
an attitude on both sides that
Exactly.
we need to change.
We're a little boost to
Right.
help them out.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at it, you know, the information like we're getting from other people that are, you know, like internally the courts, they've been feeding us what the issues are. I've talked to the hospitals and they've told me what some of the issues are on what the county was lacking in the response side of things
Yeah.
when this first happened. So I have some good ideas there. Workforce is going to be awesome. There's a lot of, we got the key people at the table for workforce, I think, for this. And you know, there are some others that still need to be at the table there. But from the terms of this committee, we are lacking that. Like, we have good connections to the Alliance. I mean, you know, obviously those are county employees there. So it's, you know, we have that access to the data and the information and getting messaging out. We have that connection to the chamber as members of the Chamber of Commerce. We should be able to rely on them to say, hey, please send this out in a non-specific way. Or maybe there's something we want to know. What would you like to ask the county board for in terms of assistance, and have that known who it's coming from, right? In that case, we'd want to know. They would want to tell us. But sometimes people, if they're going to say things, you know, that may be critical, respond, they would want that to be anonymous. So we can do that too. You know.
Definitely.
But again, we got a little bit of time. But I'm concerned with the business community because I don't know where they're at. Have they already absorbed much of the hit? Like, we can't go back to 2020.
Right.
You know, that's we can't spend this money on stuff that didn't occur before March unless there's certain circumstances that would apply. And so again, those are vague and undefined completely as well. So we'll start going through that. That's one of the reasons that once we get to the point of having policy done and we've got projects that we think are viable, then we're going to vet all of those through our ARPA team, if you will, who is responsible for doing the reporting. So their job, much like it was with Cures, is to understand what's going to get bounced if we submit it that way. Or, you know, like, Treasury's going to say, no, that's not a good use of the money, pay us back. We can't ever get that phone call. We just can't. I refuse, you know, or, you know, maybe I'll change our number. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's one of those where if we do it right, we shouldn't have to worry about that. You know, but anytime that we decide, hey, let's just wing it, that's not appropriate.
No, we don't.
You know?
We don't do
Or
that.
if there's a gray area, we'll probably engage Mr. Coughlin in the back and his team of legal experts. He's got like 50 people up there working with him. So yeah, if you could see his face right now, you'd understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going, what?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. But again, they would probably defer to the people who have the subject matter experts and investigate what their opinion is for us. So it's the law was intentionally vague in some areas and intentionally specific in others. Now, Treasury is drilling down. I'll use this as an example. The state of Ohio sued the federal government that's saying that if you forbid us from using the money as a state that you're sending us to reduce people's taxes, that's a violation of the Constitution for a specific reason. They won. They won like 2 weeks ago. But that was the state one. That has nothing to do with tribes or municipal governments. So the reason they won is they said the law was vague on the implications of what it meant. So they couldn't interpret the law, so they kicked it back basically to Treasury to define it. So that's what's going to happen. Treasury will redefine it more specifically, and then it'll be valid. Does that make sense? So again, that just evolved in the last 3-4 weeks. And I'm sure we're going to see more of that kind of stuff come up.
Exactly.
You know? So
I
we'll
think
just try to roll with it how we can.
that's the best we can do. We have to define the need with the people and the businesses, and then find the solution to help them to get charged up again. Because if you do start talking to them, you're really going to hear what's going on in their local business at all. Okay, adoption of policy for consideration by the executive committee. Anything to discuss there?
We just did.
We just did. Well, hot dog. We're in business here.
Easy button.
And then that leads us to,
Yeah, there's if we ever get into a situation, I want to mention this, that we don't have a quorum, or we have a hard stop at an hour because I've got to do all these in one day. So we will recess the meeting. Okay, motion to recess, because then we can come back and just pick it up where we left off at the next meeting. But if we get done like we did today, then it's a motion to adjourn. I want to say the difference because it allows us, it provides us certain opportunities that we wouldn't have if we didn't do it that way. So.
very good, very good. And I would like to compliment, first of all, Kelly, for the work that you have put into these meetings. And Jasmine, dynamite, the information I've been receiving via email. I've been reading everything that you put out there. Congratulations, great job. Easy to read, very informative. Thank you very much for your hard work. And I am going to, am I going to get ready, Mr. Kirkstra? Entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
And do I have a second on that?
Pat Pope.
Oh, okay, Ms. Polk, Dr. Polk, you have that. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Do I hear a nay?